The bell over the door gave a soft little ring, the kind that belongs to places where people remember your order before you say it. The late afternoon light slid across the glass at Kopp's Frozen Custard in Milwaukee, turning the chrome counter warm and the window seats brighter than they really were. Near the pane, a young woman sat in a wheelchair with her back straight, in that careful way people learn when sitting too long is its own kind of ache. Beside her, a sandy-colored service dog rested one paw on her sneaker, a square blue scarf around his neck that said, in stitched letters, "Good job, Maple." Nora Whitfield watched a thin ridge of vanilla melt down the side of her cup. She had come to mark something small that felt big to her. Maple had passed his final test that morning, and she wanted the moment to exist somewhere outside a doctor's office or her living room. She had promised herself she would not make it heavy. Just sit, take a slow spoonful, breathe through the sharp little sparks that sometimes ran down her legs, and let the good thing be the good thing. The door rang again. A man around his mid-30s stepped in with a boy who could not keep the happiness off his face. The boy's hair stuck up as if the lake wind had ruffled it on purpose. He held a crumpled coupon like treasure. They stood in line, decided on something simple, and when they turned to find seats, the boy saw Maple first. "Dad," he whispered, tugging at the man's sleeve, "look, that dog is wearing a graduation scarf." The man followed his son's gaze. He took in the chair, the dog, the curl of melting custard, and the way the young woman's mouth was pressed into a line that looked like concentration more than sadness. He nodded once as if agreeing with something only he heard, and they carried their cups toward her table. "Hi," the boy said a little too loud because he was excited and trying not to be. "My name's Mateo. This is my dad. Today we finished our summer swim class. It felt like a graduation. We were going to sit by the window, but this window looks taken by you and your very good dog." Maple thumped his tail without lifting his head. Nora glanced up, surprised, into a small laugh that softened her face. "His name is Maple," she said. "He likes compliments." "Can we sit with you?" Mateo asked, "so we can have a window together. Dad says celebrations are better when you share them. We have an extra spoon." The man gave a polite half-smile that somehow did not feel like a performance. "Only if you want company," he added, his voice low and easy. "We are not here to bother you." Nora looked at the empty seats, at the two cups and the boy's bright eyes, and at Maple, who had made the tiniest sound in his throat, the one he used when doors were hard to open or hands were too full. Loneliness can be stubborn. It digs in and calls itself habit. She felt it shift just a little. "Sure," she said, and she meant it. They slid into place. The man noticed the chair legs scraping the floor and, without a word, moved one of the cafe chairs aside so her wheels could fit closer to the table. The gesture was small, quick, the kind people do when their bodies have learned how to help before their mouths have decided what to say. He set his cup down and offered his hand. "I'm Eli," he said. "It is good to meet you." "Nora," she said, shaking his hand. "Thanks for asking." They ate a few quiet bites together, the way strangers do when they are trying out the shape of a new moment. Maple watched a drip slide down Nora's cup. Mateo leaned in a little. "What does Maple help you with?" he asked, curiosity clean and gentle. "If that is okay to ask." "It is okay," Nora said. "He opens doors, picks up things when I drop them, reminds me to take breaks, and sort of watches me when the pain gets loud. He is the best teammate I have ever had." Mateo nodded like this was the most reasonable job description he had ever heard. "We made a team name for our swim class," he said. "We called ourselves the Quiet Waves because Coach said the best swimmers make almost no splash. Is Maple on Team Quiet Waves or Team Loud Waves?" "Team Quiet Waves for sure," Nora said, and Maple flicked an ear as if to agree. Eli took a small breath through his nose, a habit of someone who measures rooms by the feelings inside them. "Do you come here often?" he asked, then caught himself and smiled at the tired joke. "I am sorry. That sounded like a line. I only mean, this place feels like it keeps happy moments on the shelves." "It does," Nora said. "My mom and I used to come here when I was little, after we bought school supplies. The lake wind can be rude, but it makes the custard taste better somehow." They watched the street a minute, the buses and bicycles, the people doing their ordinary lives. Nora shifted, a careful adjustment to ease the hot wire of pain that sometimes ran down her right side. Eli noticed the way her jaw set and did not say anything helpful, like some people do when they are uncomfortable. He simply waited with her. The way you wait when you understand that breathing is sometimes the bravest thing. Mateo slid his extra spoon across the table. "For the next celebration," he said, "so you do not have to eat it alone." Nora looked at the spoon, at the boy, at Eli. She felt something warm that was not custard move through her chest. "Thank you," she said. "I was trying to be brave about this being a one-person party." "My coach says brave does not always mean alone," Mateo replied, then shrugged like he was quoting someone he trusted. "Sometimes it just means you let more people be on your team." Nora smiled in a way she had not in months. Maple lifted his head, satisfied. Eli glanced toward the front counter, where a new employee was wiping the glass with focus and the kind of nerves that come with a first week on the job. A man at the next table scowled at Maple's pause. "You see the scarf," the man muttered to no one in particular, "but a dog is a dog. This is a place to eat." The new employee hesitated, cloth in hand, eyes bouncing from the sign on the door to Maple's calm face to Nora's chair. Nora's shoulders went a degree tighter. Mateo reached out and patted Maple's neck like he could pat the air itself into kindness. Eli sat up a little, not aggressive, just ready. He had that look people get when they have practiced staying steady in other people's storms. He turned back to Nora, kept his voice even. "If you want me to say something, I can, or I can keep quiet and sit here with you." Nora lifted her chin. "Let us see," she said softly. The bell over the door rang again, and footsteps crossed the tile. The room shifted in that slow way small places do when someone important to someone else walks in. Eli did not look yet. He took one more bite and then set his spoon down. He had no way of knowing it, but what came next would change everything. The woman who stepped through the door looked like she belonged in a courtroom, not in a custard shop. Her posture straight, her dark hair pinned perfectly, her suit pressed as if it had never met a wrinkle. She carried herself the way people do when the world expects something from them every minute. When Nora looked up and saw her mother, the spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "Mom," she whispered, barely audible. Senator Claire Whitfield's eyes landed on her daughter, then moved to Eli and Mateo. For a second, confusion flickered there. Then control returned like a curtain being drawn. She crossed the room with a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nora," she said, "I didn't know you were here." "Just celebrating Maple's graduation," Nora said quietly, her voice steady in that careful way people use when they're holding back a mix of pride and shame. "He passed his final service test today." "That's wonderful," Claire said. Her tone was professional, the same one she used in campaign commercials. Then her gaze shifted to Eli and Mateo. "And your friends?" Before Nora could answer, Mateo spoke. "Hi, ma'am. I'm Mateo. This is my dad, Eli. We were just having custard together. It's a celebration." Claire's smile froze. "I see." She turned to Eli, extending a hand that was more political than personal. "Claire Whitfield." "Eli Torres," he said, shaking it. "Nice to meet you, ma'am." Claire's phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at the screen, sighed, and silenced it. Then, in a voice meant to sound gentle but edged with warning, she said, "Nora, perhaps next time let's plan these things. We could have done something at home. You don't need to be doing this alone." "I'm not alone," Nora said softly, setting down her spoon. "Not right now." Before her mother could respond, the man at the next table spoke again, louder this time. "Ma'am, I don't care what kind of dog that is, but animals don't belong where people eat. It's disgusting." The new employee froze mid-step. A few customers turned their heads. The air shifted, thick with that tension that always appears when someone says the wrong thing too loudly. Nora's hand trembled on her lap. Maple lifted his head, alert but calm, trained to read her cues. Eli rose from his chair, not fast, not threatening, but with the steady movement of someone who knew how to handle scenes like this. "Sir," he said evenly, "this is a service dog. He's trained to help her, not bother anyone. He's allowed here by law." The man scoffed. "I know what people say to get special treatment. Everybody's got an excuse these days." The words landed like a slap. Mateo looked between the adults, his young face uncertain. Claire straightened, the senator emerging full force. "Excuse me," she said in her public voice, the one that could silence a committee room. "That young woman happens to be my daughter, and she's entitled to be here." Nora flinched slightly at the phrasing, entitled to be here, but didn't speak. Eli glanced at her, reading the discomfort that her mother couldn't see. "We don't need to make this bigger," he said quietly. People like that man don't listen to volume anyway." But the customer wasn't finished. "Maybe she should stay home if she needs a dog and a babysitter," he muttered. The sound of the word babysitter cut through Nora like glass. Maple stood now, alert, his body between her and the stranger. Before anyone could react, Mateo slid off his chair, walked up to the man, and said with the absolute confidence only an 8-year-old could have, "He's not a babysitter. He's a helper. He opens doors and picks things up and keeps her safe. My dad says that's called teamwork. You should try it sometime." A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the shop. The man's face went red and he mumbled something about leaving, pushing past the door with more force than necessary. The bell clanged sharply in his wake. The new employee exhaled in relief. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," she said to Nora, eyes wide. "I didn't know what to do." "It's okay," Nora replied, voice trembling but kind. "You did fine." Eli placed a gentle hand on the back of Mateo's shoulder. "That was brave," he said softly, "but next time, let adults handle it." Mateo grinned up at him. "You mean like you handled it by sitting down?" Eli laughed quietly. "Exactly like that." For the first time, Claire's posture softened, if only slightly. She looked at Mateo, then at Eli, then finally at her daughter. "You handled that well," she said. "I suppose you didn't need my help after all." Nora looked at her mother, unsure whether it was a compliment or a confession. "I just needed someone to stay," she said. Claire didn't respond. She adjusted her purse strap, checked her phone again, and murmured something about being late for a meeting. "Call me later," she said, her tone back to neutral, and walked out the door. The shop returned to its usual hum, the sound of the custard machine, the chatter, the clinking spoons. Nora sat still, the adrenaline wearing off, her hand resting lightly on Maple's fur. Eli broke the silence. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said. "That could have gone worse." Mateo looked up from his half-melted cup. "At least the bad man left," he said simply. "And Maple wins." Nora smiled, brushing away a small tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Yeah," she whispered. "Maple wins." Outside, through the wide front window, Claire's car pulled away. The reflection of Nora and her new friends shimmered in the glass, framed by the sunset. She didn't know it yet, but the quiet strength that had just filled that little shop, the kind born from strangers choosing kindness, was only the first ripple of something much larger waiting ahead. The evening crowd had thinned by the time Nora left the custard shop. The last of the daylight spilled across the sidewalk, turning the puddles gold. She moved slowly, Maple padding beside her, his leash looped around her wrist. Each push of the wheels sent a faint ache up her arms, but she didn't mind. For the first time in a while, the ache felt like proof of living, not limitation. Eli and Mateo had offered to walk her to the bus stop, but she'd smiled and said she could manage. "You've done enough heroic things for one day," she joked. Still, as she rolled toward the corner, she caught them in the window's reflection. The father wiping his son's sticky hands, the boy laughing, the kind of easy warmth that made something deep in her chest twist. Across the street, under the bright red awning of a bakery, a familiar black sedan idled. The driver's window rolled down just enough for Claire Whitfield to watch her daughter move down the block. She hadn't meant to follow. Her driver had insisted on taking the longer route back to the office, and somehow it had led them right past Nora. Claire told herself she was only checking, making sure her daughter got home safely, but the truth was harder to face. She didn't trust the strangers who'd been with her. "Ma'am," her aide said from the passenger seat, "we really should get to the station. They're waiting for your statement." Claire nodded, but didn't move. Her gaze stayed on Nora until the bus arrived. The ramp unfolded with a mechanical sigh, and Nora wheeled herself inside with practiced grace. Maple followed, his vest catching the last shimmer of sunlight before the doors closed. Claire felt something pinch behind her ribs. Then she straightened, tucked her phone away, and told the driver to go. That night, Nora's phone buzzed twice before she was ready to answer. "Hi, Mom." "Nora." Claire's voice was smooth, practiced. "I saw you earlier. You didn't mention you were going out today." "I didn't think I needed to," Nora said gently. "It wasn't a secret." "I understand," her mother replied, a pause stretching between them. "But I worry. You were with some people I don't know. A man and his child." Nora blinked at the tone, not quite accusing, but not far from it either. "His name's Eli. He's a paramedic, and that was his son. They just sat with me for a while." "Do you know them well?" "No, but they were kind, Mom." "Kindness can be complicated," Claire said, her voice quiet but sharp. "There are people who take advantage of situations, especially of—" She stopped herself. "Of people like me?" Nora finished. "That's not what I meant. But it's what you think," Nora said softly. "You think because someone helped me, they must want something." Claire exhaled, the sound of someone losing a small battle. "I've worked too long in politics not to be cautious." "I'm not a headline, Mom. I just had ice cream with a dad and his kid." "Custard," Claire corrected automatically, the old habit of control slipping out before she could catch it. Nora laughed once, but it was short, brittle. "Right, custard. Thank you for clarifying." She almost hung up, but then said, "You used to love that place, remember?" "I remember," Claire said, softer now. "I remember you spilling sprinkles on your first day of kindergarten. Your father bought 3 cups just to calm you down." "I remember that too," Nora whispered. "You were late that day." Silence filled the line long enough for Nora to hear Maple snoring softly at her feet. "I'll be careful," she said finally. "Good night, Mom." When the call ended, Nora sat in the quiet glow of her apartment. On the coffee table lay Maple's graduation certificate, a folded napkin Mateo had drawn on, and an extra spoon. She turned the spoon in her hand, thinking of the way Mateo had said celebrations are better when you share them. Somewhere downtown, Claire Whitfield sat in her office, the city lights stretching out like a net below. Her aide placed a folder in front of her, a brief prepared by her communications team. On top was a photograph, printed from a phone screen. Nora in her wheelchair, sitting with Eli and Mateo at the custard shop. The caption beneath, meant for a press draft, read, "Senator's daughter, seen dining with unknown man." Claire's hand tightened on the page. "Who gave you this?" "It came from a local reporter," her aide said carefully. "They're asking for comment before running it. We can spin it, of course. Frame it as community outreach." Claire's throat went dry. She closed the folder. "No comment," she said. "Not one word." As the aide left, Claire stared at the photo again. Nora's face was turned slightly toward Eli and the boy, a small, unguarded smile softening her features. It wasn't the kind of smile Claire had seen in years, not since before the accident. It was free. She set the photo aside, but the image stayed with her. The smile, the dog, the strangers who somehow managed to make her daughter look alive again. Out in the dark, a soft summer rain began to fall, the kind that cools the streets and brings out the smell of wet asphalt. Nora turned off her lamp, pulled Maple's blanket up around him, and whispered into the dim light, "Thanks for today, buddy. Maybe tomorrow will be another good one." But neither of them knew that tomorrow would bring more than a good day. It would bring a storm neither of them were ready for. The next afternoon came with that sticky kind of summer rain Milwaukee is famous for, heavy enough to make the air smell like wet metal, but not strong enough to cool anything down. Nora had an appointment across town, something small, just a follow-up with her physical therapist. She decided to take the bus. She liked the feeling of doing something on her own, of being part of the city again, instead of watching it from behind her apartment window. Maple trotted beside her as they reached the stop near South 1st Street. The ramp there had been cracked for months, and every time she rolled over it, she had to lift the front wheels a little to keep them from catching. She had written to the city about it once, even filled out a form online, but nothing changed. People were always promising improvements, and promises always sounded the same: polite, patient, and slow. She waited under the small glass shelter while rain drummed on the roof like 1,000 tiny knocks. Maple sat close, his head resting on her shoe. Across the street, a billboard showed her mother's campaign photo, Senator Claire Whitfield, smiling, confident, the slogan, "Building a Better Tomorrow." Nora looked away before the ache behind her ribs could grow teeth. A bus came roaring through a puddle, spraying water like a wave. She backed up just in time, laughing under her breath. A man nearby muttered something about the city's drainage problems and walked off. Then the bus she needed appeared, its lights cutting through the mist. The ramp hissed down, slick with rain. Nora moved forward carefully. The front wheel slipped first. It was quick, almost quiet, the kind of slip that gives no warning. Her body pitched forward before Maple barked once, sharp and focused. The leash tugged against her wrist as he planted his paws, blocking the slide. The chair tilted, then hit the ground hard enough to jolt through her arms. For a second, the sound of rain swallowed everything. She felt the sting of pavement against her palms, the cold splash up her sleeve. Maple pressed against her leg, his body solid and trembling all at once. Someone shouted from the shelter. A few strangers rushed over. One woman knelt beside her, asking if she was hurt. Another tried to lift the wheelchair, but the wheels kept spinning against the wet concrete. Nora's breath came short, partly from pain, partly from embarrassment, the kind that burns hotter than any bruise. "I'm okay," she said automatically, though her voice shook. "I just need a second." "Let me help you," a voice said behind the small crowd. It was calm, deep, and familiar. Eli. He must have been coming off his shift, his medic jacket half unzipped, rain glistening on his shoulders. Mateo trailed behind him with a backpack that looked bigger than he was. "Dad, she fell," the boy blurted, eyes wide. "I see her," Eli said softly, kneeling down beside Nora. "All right, let's take a breath. I'm right here, okay?" Nora nodded, trying to smile. "Guess Maple's training got tested early." "He passed," Eli said, already checking her hands for cuts. "You didn't hit your head?" "No, just my pride." He smiled, relieved but still careful. "Let's get you back up. On 3, I'll lift from the side. Maple, stay." The dog froze, perfectly trained. Together they steadied the chair and guided her back into it. Her muscles trembled, but she stayed upright. The woman from the shelter handed her a napkin from a fast food bag. "For your hands, honey." "Thank you," Nora whispered. She dabbed at the mud, watching how the water turned it thin and gray. Eli crouched in front of her, his voice lower now. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah," she said. "Just the usual. Bad ramp, good timing." Mateo pointed at the cracked concrete. "That's broken. Someone should fix it." "They should," Eli agreed, standing. "And maybe this time someone will listen." He helped wipe the rain from her lap, careful not to make her feel helpless. The bus driver came out, apologizing for the slick ramp. Nora assured him it wasn't his fault. The world was just built unevenly. That was all. "Do you want to ride home?" Eli asked. Nora hesitated. She didn't want pity, but his tone wasn't pity. It was simple concern, like asking if she wanted an umbrella in the rain. "I'd like that," she said. He smiled. "Then let's get out of here before it floods." They walked, rolled, together down the block, Maple between them, Mateo skipping in puddles. Every few steps, Eli glanced over to make sure her wheels didn't catch on the cracks. At a red light, Nora said quietly, "My mom would hate this." Eli looked at her. "What part?" "Me needing help. She thinks independence means doing everything alone." He thought about that, then said, "Maybe independence just means choosing who gets to help." She laughed softly, the sound lighter than the rain. "You always talk like that?" "Only when it's raining," he said, grinning. When they reached her apartment building, he waited while she rolled under the awning. Mateo crouched to pet Maple, whispering something about being a good hero dog. "Thank you," Nora said, "for showing up again." "You don't have to thank me," Eli replied. "This city's full of cracks. Sometimes we just find each other through them." He meant it lightly, but the words stayed with her. After they left, Nora sat by the window watching the street shimmer. She replayed the moment, the slip, the bark, the hands that reached for her. Meanwhile, across town, Claire Whitfield's phone buzzed again. The message was brief, from an unknown number. "You might want to see the video on Channel 8. She clicked the link. The clip was only 30 seconds long. Nora's wheelchair slipping, Maple barking, the paramedic rushing in. The reporter's voiceover said it all. "Senator's daughter rescued by city medic after fall at unsafe bus stop." Claire set the phone down, her heart tightening. Public sympathy would rise, she knew that. But the story wouldn't stay kind for long. In her world, nothing ever did. Out in the city, rain still fell steady on the cracked ramp, washing away the mud, but not the moment that had already started to change everything. That night, the rain turned to a fine mist that hung over Milwaukee like breath on a window pane. Nora couldn't sleep. The news clip had already begun spreading online, shared by neighbors, advocacy groups, and strangers who loved a good story about a brave young woman and her heroic service dog. What no one mentioned was how humiliating it had felt, being lifted, pitied, filmed without consent. She scrolled through the comments until her chest grew tight, then tossed the phone aside. Maple lifted his head, watching her with those steady eyes that always felt wiser than words. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered. "I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Her apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. The graduation certificate for Maple sat on the counter beside a folded napkin with Mateo's doodle, a dog wearing a crown. Next to it was a small cardboard box she hadn't opened in years. Inside were fragments of a life she barely remembered, a charm bracelet, a ticket from a high school play, and a stack of old Polaroids. One of them caught her breath. It showed a little girl, herself, sitting at a table in the very same custard shop. Beside her was her mother, younger then, laughing with her husband behind the camera. On the back, written in her mother's neat handwriting, were 5 words. "When I'm late, wait here." Nora traced the letters with her thumb. She could almost hear the echo of that old promise, one her mother had never quite kept. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Eli. "Saw the clip. You okay?" She stared at the message, debating what to say. She typed, deleted, then finally sent. "Yeah, embarrassed mostly." The reply came quick. "You have nothing to be embarrassed about. You got hurt because the city didn't fix what it should have." She smiled faintly. Eli always made things sound simple, grounded. No pity, no speeches, just truth. "Can I stop by tomorrow?" he added. "Mateo wants to bring Maple a treat. Says heroes deserve snacks." Nora hesitated, then typed, "Sure, Maple will appreciate the fan mail." When she set the phone down, she noticed the edge of another Polaroid peeking from the box. It was bent at the corner, the colors faded. It showed her at a charity event years ago, right before the accident. Behind her, the stage ramp was missing. A young medic stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold after she tripped in front of the crowd. Her stomach dropped. The man in the photo, dark hair, calm eyes, the same square jaw, looked unmistakably like Eli. It couldn't be, she thought, but the date scrawled at the bottom confirmed it. It was the night everything had changed. The night her father died driving home after the event. The night her body broke and her world split in two. She stared at the photo until it blurred. Could he have remembered her from then? Or had fate just circled back in one of its cruel jokes? The next morning, she decided to ask. When Eli and Mateo arrived, they came carrying a paper bag that smelled like fresh cinnamon rolls. Mateo went straight to Maple, sitting cross-legged on the rug, offering a treat. "He's still the best," the boy said proudly. "He is," Nora agreed, smiling. But her eyes kept drifting to Eli. They sat at the small kitchen table, sunlight spilling across the floor. Eli looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Off duty, hoodie instead of uniform, coffee cup in hand. "I found something," she began carefully, sliding the Polaroid across the table. "Is this you?" He looked down and his face changed in that subtle way truth does when it recognizes itself. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, that was me. Emergency medic on duty that night." Nora's throat tightened. "You were there?" "I was." He hesitated, choosing his words. "I didn't know your name back then. I just remember the commotion, the missing ramp, the press, the flashing lights, and later the crash on the radio." "The crash," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was one of the responders," he said quietly. "Your father's car was already... It was bad when we got there. I didn't know until later who he was." Nora sat back, her pulse loud in her ears. "You never told me." "I didn't want to drag you through it," he said. "You've been through enough. I figured if you ever remembered me, you'd say something. If not, maybe it wasn't my place." She looked at the photograph again, at the frozen image of 2 different versions of herself, the girl who hadn't known loss yet and the man who'd seen it all happen. "You saved people that night," she said softly. "Just not him." Eli met her eyes. "I tried." The words were simple, but they cracked something open in her chest. For years, she'd blamed herself, her mother, even the universe, but never thought about the strangers who'd been there, carrying what was left behind. Mateo's laughter broke the heaviness for a moment. He was showing Maple how to shake hands, giggling when the dog's paw landed perfectly in his small palm. Nora looked at them, then back at Eli. "I think maybe we were meant to meet again," she said, "just not in the way I expected." Eli gave a quiet smile. "Maybe second chances don't look like what we think they will." Outside, the city was waking. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement gleaming like glass. Nora turned the photo over one last time, the old handwriting brushing against her fingertips. "When I'm late, wait here." She whispered the words to herself, not as a memory, but as a promise, to stop waiting for people who never came and start noticing the ones who did. What she didn't know was that her mother had already seen the same photograph, sent to her by a journalist who claimed to have new information about that night. And for the first time in years, Senator Claire Whitfield found herself shaking, realizing the past she'd tried to bury was about to return to the surface. The envelope arrived at Senator Claire Whitfield's office just after noon. It was plain, unmarked, the kind of thing her assistant usually tossed into the pile of letters from constituents. But the name on the corner, Local Citizen Watch, caught her eye. Inside was a photo, the same Polaroid Nora had shown Eli, but with a note scrawled in sharp black ink. "Did you know who was there the night of the accident? You might want to find out." Claire stared at the image for a long time. Her younger self looked almost unrecognizable, bright-eyed, sure of herself, still believing the world could be controlled if you worked hard enough. She remembered the night vividly, the charity event, the missing ramp, her husband's anger afterward, and how the argument over safety regulations had carried into the car. He'd driven off alone, furious. Then the phone call that shattered everything. Her hands trembled as she set the photo down. She had built her career on fixing things, on never letting emotion show. But this photo, this man in the background, she knew that face now. She had seen it on television 2 days earlier. The paramedic who'd helped Nora at the bus stop. Eli Torres. Her breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her chest as if she could calm her heartbeat by force. The past and the present had collided in one small square of faded film. That evening, unable to focus on her schedule, she drove to Nora's apartment. Rain streaked the windshield again, and the city lights smeared into ribbons of gold. She didn't call first. She never did. Nora was in the kitchen when she heard the knock. Maple barked once before settling down, recognizing the familiar scent of her mother's perfume. "Mom?" Nora asked, opening the door. "Everything okay?" "No," Claire said, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. She held the photo between her fingers. "Where did you get this?" Nora blinked, caught off guard. "From an old box." "Why? Do you know who this man is?" Claire's voice was tight. "Yes," Nora said quietly, "it's Eli. He was there that night." "Do you understand what that means?" her mother snapped. "That man was part of the crew that responded to your father's accident. And now, what? He's suddenly in your life again. Do you think that's coincidence?" Nora felt her chest tighten. "Mom, he didn't plan this. He didn't even tell me. He didn't want to hurt me." Claire set the photo down like it was something toxic. "Maybe not, but the press doesn't care about intent, Nora. They care about stories, about angles. The senator's daughter befriending the medic who was there the night her father died. It's sensational. They'll spin it until it ruins all of us." "All of us?" Nora repeated, her voice sharp now. "Or just you?" Claire froze. "You're afraid of a headline," Nora said, her tone shaking but steady. "Not of what I might feel, but of what people might think. You haven't changed at all." "That's not fair." "It's true." Nora rolled forward until she was level with her mother. "Do you know what Eli told me? He said he tried to save Dad. He was there, Mom. He did what he could. And for 4 years, we've both been pretending we're the only ones who lost something that night." Claire looked down, the mask slipping just for a moment. "You don't know what it's like to carry that kind of guilt," she said softly. "Yes, I do," Nora whispered. "Every time I look in the mirror." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Maple's slow breathing. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Claire said finally. "But this connection, it complicates things. There are donors, hearings, votes coming up. I can't afford distractions." "You mean I can't afford to live like a person because you have a campaign?" Nora's voice cracked on the word person. "Maybe that's the problem, Mom. You keep seeing me as a project or a liability, not as your daughter." Claire swallowed hard. "I'm doing this to protect you." "No," Nora said, tears rising. "You're doing this to protect yourself from feeling powerless again, from remembering that money and power couldn't save him, or me." Claire turned toward the door, her expression a mix of exhaustion and denial. "You'll thank me one day." "Maybe," Nora said softly, "but not today." When the door shut, Maple nudged her hand, sensing the tremor in her breath. Nora leaned down, pressing her forehead against his. "It's okay, buddy," she murmured. "I'm not running this time." Later that night, her phone lit up with a notification, an email forwarded from a reporter. The subject line read, "City budget to cut accessibility program, Senator Whitfield's office proposal." Her hands went cold. It was her mother's signature on the document. She clicked through the attachments, her pulse rising. The same proposal also showed a list of anonymous donors funding a new private service dog foundation, one of them marked CW. Her mother had been quietly supporting the same cause she was cutting from the public budget, funding it in secret to look generous while saving political capital. Nora closed her laptop slowly. It all made sense now. The guilt, the control, the contradictions. Her mother had been trying to fix what she broke, but only where no one could see it. She reached for her phone and called Eli. "Hey," he answered, his voice warm and tired. "You okay?" "No," Nora said, her tone steady despite the ache in her throat. "But I think it's time people heard the truth." Eli hesitated. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said, glancing at Maple, "there's a city council hearing next week about those budget cuts. Maybe it's time they saw who those cuts actually hurt." "Nora, I'm done being quiet," she said. "I've been sitting down long enough." Outside, the city hummed beneath the rain. Somewhere downtown, her mother stared at the same proposal, realizing the secret she'd hidden so carefully was about to come undone. And, for the first time in years, Claire Whitfield felt something she hadn't let herself feel since the night of the accident. Fear, not of losing power, but of losing her daughter. The day of the city council hearing dawned gray and heavy, the kind of morning where the sky seemed undecided. Milwaukee's air carried that cool dampness that settles in before rain, and every streetlight blinked against the low clouds like it knew something important was about to happen. Nora sat by the window, hands resting on the smooth wheels of her chair. Maple's head was on her knee, his tail sweeping the floor in slow, steady rhythms. She wasn't nervous exactly, but the quiet before a storm has its own kind of gravity. Eli was there too, leaning against the counter, sleeves rolled up, a cup of coffee cooling beside him. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice soft. She nodded. "If I stay silent, the story ends where it always does, with sympathy and no change. I'm tired of being the headline that fades." He studied her a moment, the same way he did when checking a patient's vitals. Calm, precise, but full of care. "Then I'll be right there," he said. "You and Maple take the front. Mateo and I will hold the moral support section." That made her smile. "Moral support section?" He shrugged. "We clap first, always good to have that covered." By mid-morning, the city hall was buzzing. People filed into the chamber. Veterans with canes, parents pushing strollers, seniors from the neighborhood center. The benches filled fast. It wasn't the kind of hearing that usually drew a crowd, but something about the leaked budget proposal had hit a nerve. Nora rolled to the front row, Maple close at her side. Eli and Mateo sat a few seats back, whispering about how big the microphones looked. And at the table in the center, Senator Claire Whitfield sat in her tailored gray suit, papers neatly stacked, smile practiced but uneasy. When she saw her daughter enter, her expression flickered. For a second, the mask cracked. Then the camera lights went on, and it was back in place. The chairwoman called the meeting to order. Today, we'll hear public comments regarding the proposed changes to the city's accessibility and service animal programs. A few citizens spoke first, a retired bus driver, a teacher whose classroom had no wheelchair ramp. Then the chairwoman nodded toward Nora. "Ms. Whitfield, you requested to speak." The room hushed. Nora rolled forward, her voice calm but steady. "Thank you for letting me be here," she began. "My name is Nora Whitfield, and I've lived in this city my whole life. 4 years ago, an accident changed how I move through the world, but it didn't change what I see. And what I see is a city full of people who want to participate but can't. Not because they lack will, but because we keep forgetting to make space for them." Her words hung there, soft but unshakable. "A week ago, I fell at a bus stop because the ramp hadn't been repaired. I wasn't the first, and I won't be the last. But I'm here because I can do something about it. Not as a senator's daughter, not as someone who needs help, but as a citizen who deserves access." Claire's jaw tightened. Nora continued. "My service dog, Maple, helps me live independently. Programs like his don't just train animals. They rebuild confidence, connection, and hope. Cutting funding for them doesn't save money. It costs lives." From the back row, Mateo's small voice piped up, "Yeah." The room chuckled softly, tension breaking for a breath. The chairwoman smiled. "Please continue, Ms. Whitfield." Nora took a breath. "There's something else I need to say." She looked directly at her mother. "The person who proposed these cuts, she's also one of the anonymous donors funding a private program for service dogs, the same program that trained Maple. I don't think that's evil or corrupt. I think it's human. Sometimes we try to fix things from a distance because getting close hurts too much. But if we keep doing that, we'll never fix anything at all." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Reporters glanced at Claire, pens ready. The senator's face was pale, but she didn't interrupt. "Today isn't about shame," Nora said. "It's about choice. We can choose to keep looking away from people who need access, or we can decide that our city works best when it works for everyone." When she finished, the room erupted into quiet applause. Not loud, but deep, the kind that comes from people who recognize something honest when they hear it. Eli stood, clapping once before anyone else did. Mateo followed, smacking his hands together like thunder. Claire didn't move. She just sat there, staring at her daughter, something breaking slowly behind her eyes. When the applause faded, she rose. "Madam Chair," she said, voice rougher than usual, "may I speak?" The room turned silent again. Cameras clicked. Claire walked to the microphone. "For the record, my name is Senator Claire Whitfield. I came here prepared to defend my proposal, but my daughter is right. Somewhere between protecting my career and protecting my family, I lost sight of what matters." She paused, looking at Nora. "Yes, I donated privately to those programs. It was easier to give quietly than to face the guilt of not doing enough. I thought I could balance both worlds, but you can't build a better tomorrow by taking away someone's today." Gasps moved through the crowd. Reporters scribbled. Nora's eyes stung. Claire continued, steadier now. "So, I'm withdrawing my proposal, and I'll work with this council to increase accessibility funding, not cut it. My daughter reminded me that leadership doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means standing in it, together." She turned toward Nora. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry." Nora's voice caught in her throat. "You mean that?" "I do," Claire said quietly. "I don't know how to fix all of it yet, but I'd like to start by walking beside you, or maybe rolling, if you'll have me." Laughter rippled gently through the room. In the back, Mateo raised his hand as if asking permission to speak. "Does this mean we all win?" he asked. Eli smiled. "I think it means we're finally on the same team." The hearing adjourned to applause that felt less like politics and more like healing. Reporters rushed forward, but for once, Claire didn't pose for the cameras. She knelt beside Nora's chair, reaching out to rest a hand on her daughter's arm. "Can we get lunch?" she asked, voice trembling just enough to sound real. Nora's lips curved. "Only if you're buying." Outside, the sky finally opened, not with thunder, but with a soft rain, warm and cleansing. Maple wagged his tail, pulling gently at his leash. The city felt new again, like something had been washed clean. And for the first time in 4 years, as mother and daughter left the building side by side, Milwaukee's rain didn't feel like sorrow. It felt like a beginning. The morning after the hearing, Milwaukee felt different. Maybe it was the way people smiled at strangers, or how the local news anchors sounded softer when they said her name. Or maybe it was just Nora herself, lighter somehow, like she had finally stopped holding her breath. The headlines were everywhere. Senator's daughter inspires city policy turnaround. Accessibility bill reinstated after emotional testimony. There were photos of Nora and Maple leaving City Hall, surrounded by reporters, but the picture that spread most was the one taken just after Claire's apology. A shot of mother and daughter side by side, rain on their shoulders, both looking human for the first time in years. By noon, Nora's inbox overflowed. Messages from strangers, veterans, teachers, people she'd never met. One said, "My husband uses a wheelchair. Because of you, he'll finally be able to take the bus again. Thank you." Another simply read, "You made us proud to live here." Nora didn't know how to respond to any of them. She just sat at her small kitchen table with Maple's head in her lap, the world feeling both too big and suddenly reachable. A gentle knock came at the door. Maple barked once and trotted over. Nora smiled. "You really don't rest, do you?" It was Eli, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a brown bag that smelled like cinnamon rolls. Mateo peeked around his leg, holding a wrinkled poster. "Mornin'," Eli said. "Figured you might be running on adrenaline and not breakfast." "You figured right," Nora said, opening the door wider. "Come in before the coffee gets cold." Mateo bounced in, grinning. "We saw you on TV. You were amazing." Dad cried. "I did not," Eli said quickly, though the faint redness in his eyes gave him away. "It was the allergies. Milwaukee pollen's brutal this year." They laughed. the kind of laughter that comes easily after a storm has passed. Mateo unrolled his poster, proudly displaying a crayon drawing. 3 figures, Nora, Eli, and himself, standing beside Maple under a big blue sky. Above them, in shaky letters, he'd written, "The Quiet Waves." "That's our team name," he said. "We added you and Maple because teams need everyone who makes them stronger." Nora looked down at the drawing, her throat tightening. "You're a good artist, Mateo." "I know," he said matter-of-factly. "Can we put it on your fridge?" "Absolutely." While Mateo went to find magnets, Eli sat down at the table. For a moment, he just watched her, how the morning light brushed her face, how calm she looked even in the quiet. "You changed something yesterday," he said. "Not just for yourself, for a lot of people." "I didn't do it alone," she replied. "You were there, so was your kid and half the city." Eli smiled. "Still, it took you to start it." He hesitated before adding, "I know that hearing wasn't easy, with your mom there and everything." Nora looked toward the window, where the rain had left small trails down the glass. "It wasn't, but for the first time, I think she actually heard me. Not the words, but me." Eli nodded. "That's what matters. Sometimes love just takes a while to catch up." They fell into a comfortable silence. Maple wandered over, pressing his head under Nora's hand, then nosed at Eli's knee, expecting a share of the cinnamon roll. "I think he's a fan of you," Eli said, feeding Maple a small piece. "He has good taste," Nora teased. Eli laughed softly, then looked at her again. "So what now? You could do something big with this momentum. Speak out more. Start a foundation." She thought about that, then shook her head gently. "Maybe later. For now, I just want to live my life. Go to the park, take Maple out, help where I can. I don't need a stage, I just need a seat at the table." "That sounds like the best place to start." As they talked, Nora's phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Proud of you. Dinner tomorrow. Just us." She smiled faintly. "It's a start," she murmured. "Good start," Eli said. "And if you need backup, we're a pretty loud team." Outside, the neighborhood was alive with the small sounds of summer. Children on bikes, a lawnmower humming somewhere down the block, a church bell in the distance. Nora closed her eyes and breathed in the ordinary beauty of it all. When she opened them, Mateo was carefully taping the poster to her fridge. The crayon sun beamed bright yellow over all 4 of them. Eli leaned on the counter, arms folded. "You know," he said, "we never really had a proper celebration for everything that happened. How about we go back to Cops later? One more custard for the team?" Nora grinned. "I'd like that." "Deal," he said. That evening, the 3 of them sat by the same window where everything had begun. Maple dozed at Nora's feet, his scarf freshly washed and tied neatly. The light outside faded from gold to blue, and for the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel empty. Nora looked at Eli, at Mateo, at the world beyond the glass. "You know what's funny?" she said. "A few weeks ago, I thought the best part of my life was already behind me. Turns out, it was just waiting for me to show up." Eli smiled, raising his cup. "Here's to showing up." Maple lifted his head at the sound of her laughter, tail thumping softly. And, in that small corner of Milwaukee, beneath the hum of neon lights and the scent of sweet custard, a broken family, old and new, finally found its rhythm again. A month later, summer started to loosen its grip on the city. The air had cooled just enough that mornings carried a crisp edge, and the sunlight seemed softer, kinder. For the first time in years, Milwaukee's bus ramps gleamed new and even. Someone had finally fixed them. Nora sat near one of the stops on her usual route, sipping coffee from a paper cup while Maple dozed beside her. The city was alive with ordinary movement, people hustling to work, kids in sneakers squeaking on the sidewalk, the low hum of buses coming and going. A construction worker passed by, tipping his hard hat at her. "You're the lady from the hearing, right?" he asked, his tone friendly. "Yeah," she said, smiling. "That was me." "Good work," he said. "My brother's in a chair. That ramp there?" He nodded toward the smooth, new concrete. "He uses it now. Guess you made a difference." Nora thanked him, her throat tight. After he left, she looked down at Maple, who blinked up sleepily, tail giving one soft thump. "We did it, buddy," she whispered. "One crack at a time." Later that afternoon, she met Eli and Mateo at the park. The trees along the lake had started to change, the leaves giving in to the slow burn of autumn. Mateo was racing Maple across the grass, pretending he could outrun him. The dog, of course, let him win every time. Eli watched them from a picnic bench, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You realize you're kind of a local celebrity now, right?" Nora laughed. "Please don't say that. I don't even know how to handle the barista writing my name right on a cup." "You earned it," he said. "That hearing changed things. You changed things." She turned to him, her expression gentle. "You know what really changed things? People showing up. Mateo's cheer. Your calm, even my mom, in her own stubborn way." He chuckled softly. "She's still a senator. Stubborn comes with the job." "True," Nora said, smiling. "But she's trying. We have dinner once a week now. No cameras, no staff, just us. Sometimes we even talk about Dad, and it doesn't hurt as much anymore." "That's progress," Eli said. "Yeah," she nodded. "It's slow, but it's real." They sat quietly for a while, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. Mateo's laughter drifted back to them, light and unguarded. Maple barked once, proud of whatever small game they'd invented. Eli reached for his coffee, glancing at her over the rim. "You ever think about what's next?" "I used to think about that too much," Nora said. "Now I just let it unfold. Some days it's an interview request. Other days it's just grocery shopping and trying not to drop my phone. Either way, I'm here, and that feels enough." He nodded, understanding more in her words than she said aloud. As the afternoon stretched into gold, Claire arrived at the park, dressed simply in jeans and a cardigan. It was still strange seeing her like that, unguarded, unannounced. She carried a small paper bag and waved when she spotted them. "I brought lunch," she said, smiling. "Sandwiches and those little lemon bars you like." "You made those," Nora teased. "Bought them," Claire admitted, but with genuine love. They laughed, and it didn't feel forced this time. As they ate, Claire talked about her new initiative, an advisory committee for accessibility, with Nora as co-chair. "The city council approved it unanimously," she said. "They want your input, all of it." Nora blinked, surprised. "Seriously?" "Seriously," Claire said. "Turns out you're better at this than most of us in office." "Don't tell them that," Nora joked. "They'll expect me to wear a suit." "You'd make it look better than I ever did," Claire replied, and they shared a laugh that reached all the way to their eyes. As the sun began to dip, Mateo pulled a folded paper from his backpack. "Can I show you something?" he asked. He held up a crayon drawing of a bus ramp, smooth and wide, with stick figures rolling across it. Above it, in bright blue letters, he'd written, "We fixed it." Nora felt her chest tighten in that familiar, beautiful way that comes when joy sneaks in through the cracks. "You sure did, Mateo," she said softly. "You sure did." Claire leaned closer, looking at the drawing, then at her daughter. "You know," she said, her voice lower, "your father would have been proud, not just because you spoke up, but because you never let pain turn you bitter." Nora swallowed hard. "I like to think he's somewhere laughing about how stubborn we both are." "Without a doubt," Claire said, smiling. They all watched as Mateo and Maple started another race, their laughter echoing against the water. The light turned amber, wrapping the park in that fleeting glow that only happens before dusk. Eli turned to Nora. "You said once you just wanted a seat at the table," he said. "Looks like you built one instead." She laughed softly, tears threatening to spill. "Maybe I did." When the sky shifted to pink and the first stars began to appear, Nora leaned back in her chair, letting the cool air wash over her face. For the first time, she didn't feel like the girl who'd lost everything. She felt like someone who'd built something new. One ramp, one conversation, one act of courage at a time. The world around her wasn't perfect, but it was open. And that was enough. From the corner of her eye, she saw her mother watching her with quiet pride, Eli smiling, Mateo still laughing, and Maple wagging his tail as if keeping time with her heartbeat. Nora closed her eyes, letting the moment sink in. The soft air, the gentle voices, the peace she'd spent 4 years searching for. And in that simple, unremarkable park, surrounded by everything she never thought she'd have again, she realized the truth she'd been chasing all along. She hadn't been waiting for the world to change. The world had been waiting for her to return to it. Autumn finally arrived in full color. The lake shimmered under a sky that couldn't decide if it wanted to stay blue or turn gray, and Milwaukee smelled faintly of cinnamon, coffee, and wet leaves. For Nora, it felt like the first real season of her new life, one not marked by fear or limitation, but by movement, by choice. Every Saturday morning, she, Eli, Mateo, and Maple met at the same park. Sometimes Claire joined, sometimes not. But the space between them no longer felt like a battlefield. It was just life, imperfect, ongoing, quietly healing. That morning, Claire sat on the grass beside Nora's chair, holding 2 steaming cups of cider. "You know," she said, "when I started in politics, I thought the goal was to change the system. Now I think the goal is to remember who you're changing it for." Nora smiled. "You're learning." Claire smirked. "It took me a while. I'm a stubborn teacher." "You get that from me," Nora said, and they both laughed. A few yards away, Eli was helping Mateo balance on a low wall. Maple trotted back and forth like a referee, making sure no one fell. The boys' laughter carried through the crisp air, and for a moment, everything felt suspended. The kind of peace that doesn't demand attention. It just exists. Nora looked down at her lap, at the small notebook she now carried everywhere. Inside were ideas, sketches, names, the beginnings of a citywide initiative she'd started drafting. It wasn't just ramps or bus stops anymore. It was art programs, adaptive playgrounds, employment opportunities, real, everyday changes that meant someone like her didn't have to ask permission to belong. Eli wandered over, brushing leaves from his jacket. "What's got you smiling?" he asked. "This," she said, showing him the notebook. "I think I'm going to call it the Quiet Proof Project. For all the things we change quietly, one ramp, one rule, one mindset at a time." He nodded, reading the title. "That's you. Quiet but unstoppable." "Don't tell Maple that," she teased. "He's already the loud one on the team." As if on cue, the dog barked at a passing squirrel, proving her point. Mateo burst into giggles. Claire leaned back on her hands, watching her daughter surrounded by this little circle of people who'd somehow become family. "I was wrong, you know," she said suddenly. "Back then, when I told you independence meant doing things alone, I see now it means choosing your people and letting them choose you back." Nora's eyes softened. "That's the best definition I've ever heard." For a while, no one spoke. The wind moved gently through the trees, scattering gold and red leaves across the grass. Somewhere in the distance, a bus rumbled past. The same route where it all began, but this time it stopped without trouble, the new ramp gleaming under the sun. "Hey," Mateo said, running over. "Can we go get custard after this? The team needs fuel." Eli grinned. "You heard the captain. Orders are orders." Nora laughed, looking at her mom. "You in?" Claire hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Yeah, I think I've got time." They packed up slowly, Eli folding the blanket, Mateo giving Maple a dramatic pep talk about guarding the custard. As they started down the path together, Nora felt something quiet and complete settle in her chest. This wasn't a movie ending. There were still ramps to fix, forms to sign, nights when pain would flare and courage would falter. But this simple walk toward the rest of her life was real. Halfway to the car, Eli slowed his step. "You ever think about what your dad would say if he saw all this?" Nora looked up at the sky, glowing pale gold through the trees. "I think he'd tell us to keep going," she said. "To build more ramps, not just for wheels, but for people, for hearts." Eli nodded, quiet. When they reached this parking lot, Mateo was already running ahead, calling out over his shoulder, "Last one there, buys the toppings." Maple barked and chased him, and the two disappeared around the corner in a blur of joy. Nora shook her head, smiling. "He's fast." "Not faster than you," Eli said, tapping her wheel gently. "You just move in your own way." She looked at him, eyes bright. "Yeah," she said, "I guess I do." The late afternoon sun caught the edges of her hair, and for a second, time seemed to stand still. One of those moments, small enough to miss, but big enough to remember. Because that's how change happens, she thought. Not in speeches or headlines, but in quiet persistence. In love that shows up again and again. In every person who decides to keep trying. As they pulled away from the park, Nora watched the city roll by. The storefronts, the murals, the ramps that now glimmered at every corner. Proof, she realized, that the world really can be rebuilt. Not all at once, but one act of kindness, one repaired crack, one honest conversation at a time. She reached down to pat Maple's head. "We did good, huh?" Maple wagged his tail against her leg and Eli glanced over from the driver's seat. "Yeah," he said softly, "you really did." Nora looked out the window, her reflection layered against the passing city, a life stitched back together, piece by piece. And somewhere between the hum of the tires and the laughter in the back seat, She whispered a quiet truth meant only for herself. Sometimes the miracle isn't walking again. It's learning you never stopped moving. Sometimes the hardest roads lead us right back to what matters: connection, courage, and the quiet kind of love that builds bridges no one sees until they're standing on them. So tell me, do you believe that showing up for someone, truly showing up, is the most powerful kind of love there is? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story, right here on Inspire Fathers Who.